Hello and welcome back, and today I want to talk about a brand new QNAP. Let's talk about the TS-451DeU. Now, let's face it, I talk about NAS drives a hell of a lot. Let's face it, it makes up more than about 60 to 70% of what this channel is made of. But 2019 was not a busy year for NAS. That's why I factored in a bunch of other stuff. But this year is looking busier and busier in terms of network attached storage. Last year we saw more enterprise level devices and not a lot of stuff for the middle. We saw loads of top end stuff from high end Thunderbolt devices to Xeon powered rack mount devices. But all you home users that are looking for something a bit more approachable in the 2 and 4 bay region were left a little bit disappointed. On top of that, lots of rack mount users that wanted to buy a small rack mount to add to an existing storage array and wanted to spend something like $500 to $1,000 on a full storage device were left a little bit wanting. So in 2020, the majority of NAS brands do seem to be bringing their A game back to the table. And one of the biggest hitters right now in 2020 is QNAP, who are setting their stall very early for 2020 with a lot of their hardware being announced before everyone else. Now, today I want to talk about this brand new NAS Rackmount because although it arrives with the kind of budget moniker, with the EU series, which has kind of been seen as the more, lower end, affordable, low-powered business models in the past, I've got to say this one is arriving with some serious hardware under the hood for its price tag. It isn't going to compete with the i7s and the Xeons and stuff, but in terms of its price tag, which is more than likely going to be about 700 odd quid, it's really good for a 4-bay, notwithstanding the compact chassis. This is one of a range, growing popular range, I should say, of half-depth rack mounts. These are rack mount devices that are 12 inches deep. The majority of modern rack mounts arrive at either 19 or 20 inches deep, which is pretty humongous. And this rack mount at 12 inches deep and being a NAS rack mount, which means it's about 2 inches tall at the most, you're left with a device that is incredibly compact, but at the same time, full of a lot of potential. And in the case of the 451DeU, there is a lot to go on with. The last EU version NAS I saw was an ARM 64-bit powered 10 GBE device. So you had 10 GBE on board, which is great. But at the same time, you didn't get a lot of oomph with that CPU. And things have been leveled a great deal more in this new release, arriving with a brand new Intel Celeron CPU that's never featured in another NAS device before and has only recently been released right at the end of 2019. It's the Intel J4025. It's a dual-core CPU that's a 2.0 GHz clock speed that can be burst all the way up to 2.9 GHz. That is a big, big jump when you need it. This CPU is also featuring embedded graphics, and that's HD Graphics 600, that's UHD graphics I should say, so it's going to support 4K and 1080p transcoding, as well as graphical manipulation and a lot more visual data exercises, and I'll get onto that later on. This CPU is also backed up with either 2 or 4 gig of DDR4 memory, so that's a higher frequency, better memory overall, and it can be upgraded up to 8 gig as well. Now, to buffer that 4 bays of storage, which in a RAID 5 or RAID 6 you're looking, with modern hard drives reaching the 12 and 16 TB limit, it's a great amount of storage. You've also got that equipped with SSD cache. You can utilize the 2 M2 SATA bays on the motherboard of this device to provide caching assistance to those 4 bays of storage. So you can have read-write cache for improved interaction both ways with the device, or combine it to one giant area of read or write cache as you so choose. Better still, why use those SSDs for cache? We can use them for raw storage and allow the ability to have 2 SSDs combined together in the right RAID to have an enormously fast area of storage within your NAS. But before anyone thinks it, let's face it, having a fast area of storage in your NAS is only as useful to a number of you as fast as you can interact with it. And that's the other good thing about this device, because although it doesn't arrive with 10 GBE, it arrives with 2 2.5 GBE ports, upgrading from standard 1 GBE. So with link aggregation, you've got up to 5 GBE straight off the bat. So with this device, we've already kind of ditched 1 GBE, which is what I was sincerely hoping for in 2020, and upgrading those ports a little bit further. Now, The device also features other ports on the rear, which I'm sure have appeared on screen. I just want to focus on the highlights today. But on top of that, you do have USB 3 ports, which are great. Don't get me wrong, USB is USB, isn't it? It's just something that's been around for a long time. And this rack mount, although it's a 4-bay, can be expanded by adding expansion units of the TR-004U series and greater as they arrive to add more and more storage and get bigger and bigger amounts of capacity than those 4 bays you get at the start. On top of that, you can even utilize that QNAP 5GBE to USB adapter. So you can add a 5GBE connection to the rear of this QNAP NAS on top of the ports you've already got. There's a lot of room for growth on this rack mount device, whether you are a home user looking for a compact NAS that's low profile, or if you're a business user that's looking at the time of year, looking at the end of the budget. You know, you might get your new budget from your company in like April or something, and you've got a little bit left to spend, so not much, and you're looking for a good, robust storage solution. This could well be the purchase for you. Alternatively, maybe in April, you've got a new budget, but you want to allocate it sensibly. An affordable 4-bay solution like this could very much be up your alley. So what can this device do? Well, obviously it arrives with QTS 4.4.1, but more than that, it also arrives with that huge pile of first and third party applications, both client applications for Mac and Windows systems and applications within QTS 4.4.1 itself. For multimedia users, you've got the likes of Photo, Video and Music Station, as well as QMaggie for photo recognition, and a bunch of other media applications such as Room Server and Plex Media Server straight off the bat. But for the business user, you've got a lot to play with. If your data integrity is what's important to you and cataloging and accessing your data is important, then you've got Q Filing, Q Search and File Station. If backups are the most important thing to you, both in NAS and outside of the NAS, in-house and out-house, it's Hybrid Backup Sync 3, with the ability to synchronize with multiple NAS devices over real-time remote replication, RTRR, as well as cloud service providers. And Virtual JBOD and Hybrid Share allow you to mount other NASs to appear as localized storage on this device, or vice versa, and that includes with the cloud too. On top of that, you've got the device's support of surveillance. With 2 surveillance applications in Surveillance Station and QVR Pro, you have got a hell of a lot of options with regards to setting up IP cameras and web cameras connected directly to the device over USB in your home or business or shop environment. So whether you want to utilize this device for home use with all of those applications readily available, for business use with surveillance and backup and file server options, as well as virtual machine applications, container station applications, and Linux station to deploy different virtual environments, this device is going to have you covered, and in a compact chassis. And that's why it's a big deal, because we see a lot of rack mount devices. And the problem with rack mount, one of the reasons I don't talk about a lot of rack mount devices on this channel compared with desktop, is they can be fantastically boring. But this device isn't boring. It enters an area where it is a rack mount that home users can get behind, which for me personally is a big deal, and that's why I'm looking forward to having it here in the studio with me. Now, I mentioned surveillance earlier on. It arrived with 4 camera licenses in Surveillance Station and 8 camera licenses in QVR Pro. That is a big deal, but do remember you will need to upgrade the memory to take advantage of more and more cameras with this device in your home or office environment, and it is going to support all those IP and web cameras too. So right now, that would be my primary utilization for this device. All the other stuff is great, but I'm seeing this as one of the most perfect compact surveillance NASs I've seen for a long time, because rack mounts are particularly robust. And if you are going to set up a surveillance area within your home or business environment, you want something robust, compact and discreet. And boom, does this tick all of those boxes. Now, in terms of release, I'm being told this is going to arrive within the next month, which for a device I didn't know about until about 25 minutes ago, that is impressive. On top of that, in terms of price, we've got no confirmation at this stage. But given its history and its rack mount and what you've got there, I think we are still going to look at about 7 to 800 at the very top. And I wouldn't surprise me if after this 451DeU, we're going to see an 8-bay, a 12-bay and more. But whether they end up being half depth, who knows? If you're interested in this device, do let me know in the comments. Click like if you've enjoyed this video, click subscribe to learn more, and of course visit the guys at span.com and myself at NAS Compares to stay abreast of all things to do with NAS and get the right solution for you. I'll see you next time.